Hang on just one second. Steve Leisman's made his way out of the room, and we'll come back with Jeffrey, of course, in just a minute. So, Steve, as you read the statement and you heard the Fed chair, and then, of course, you asked your question, is the biggest story today the massive disagreement, as we've termed it, over the outlook for the remainder of 25? Is that the biggest takeaway among others?
Well, Scott, let me correct you. The correct economic term for disagreement on the Federal Reserve is dispersion of views, just so you know.
Thank you.
And that's a joke, of course. I'm guessing Jeff understood that one. Anyway, where we are is you had 7 folks who didn't want just either one more cut or no more cuts, and you have 9 who want 2 more cuts. And the way Powell explained it was like, hey, with all the stuff that's going on right now, you would think we would have a dispersion of views or a debate. In fact, that's exactly what I asked him about. But before we get to that quote, which I want to run here, I said, is this a recalibration or is this meeting by meeting? And he said, it's meeting by meeting. We're going to have to see the data. And then he talked about this exact question that you asked about, Scott.
Ordinarily, when the labor market is weak, inflation is low. And when the labor market is really strong, that's when you got to be careful about inflation. So we have a situation where we have two-sided risk, and that means there's no risk-free path. And so it's quite a difficult situation for policymakers. And it's not at all surprising to me that you have a range of views.
Now, I think we went into this, Scott, with really one question, which is we knew a cut was going to happen. How much confidence can we have in the future cuts? I'm looking at the futures market, Scott, and I'm seeing that they're pretty much dialed in, those other 2 rate cuts out there. I don't know if it's more or less than they should, but certainly Powell did not use that word recalibration, which is what he used in September 2024, forecast additional cuts. We're looking now at January 2026. So that's pretty dialed in, that 360, which is, right, by the way, right on where the median Fed funds or Fed official is right now. So I do think there's some doubt that should be in investors' minds, Scott, only because if inflation goes a little hotter and jobs are a little stronger, maybe you get just one more cut.
I also have felt, Steve, over the last few meetings at least, that the chair himself has had an air of confidence about him and where the Fed currently is and how it views the outlook and where they feel like they are. I feel like today you just have reintroduced a level of uncertainty around things that we really haven't felt in a while, to the degree that the Fed chair himself said it's not entirely clear what to do at the end of the sentence where he started, there's no risk-free paths now that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree a little bit, Scott. I think Powell is pretty comfortable with the uncertainty around it. It's like, hey, I was dealt, a 2, a 3, a 4, and an 8 or something like that. There's no actual obvious hand here to think about, in the sense that you have, and I've said this a bunch of times, unprecedented challenges on both sides of the mandate. Let me give you an example, Scott, and this is something that we're going to need to talk about in the future. If the break-even rate of employment is, let's say it's 50,000 now, and your 95% confidence level around that number is plus or minus 100,000, that means you could be minus 50K and have an okay job market if those numbers are the right numbers. So I think he's like, hey, this is what I got. I got unprecedented challenges on both sides. I have a committee, they're expressing themselves, and he's going through the process. I don't think he's any more uncertain with the situation than he's been. He's just in a very uncertain situation. Seems pretty comfortable for me in that situation.